Not guilty on all counts. That was the verdict handed down in a Baltimore court Monday morning in the trial of Officer Edward Nero, one of 6 officers charged with killing Freddie Gray. Nero was one of 3 bike officers who took part in Gray's initial arrest.
I don't care what charge that the officers were charged with. I think right now that he should have been convicted on something. I don't care what it was, something. He should have been convicted on something because, again, Freddie Gray did not just die by accident.
Outside the Baltimore courthouse, protesters responded with anger, but not surprise at the verdict.
Since the beginning of time, people of power have been killing people, poor whites, poor blacks, poor Mexicans. You get a badge and a gun, you're above the law.
So this is not surprising to you?
No, I knew it was going to happen. They paid the Freddie Gray family off. We knew wasn't no police going to be handed down to the criminal justice system. It's not going to happen.
Freddie Gray was a 25-year-old Baltimore man who was arrested on April 12, 2015, after running from police in West Baltimore. Gray died a week later, medical experts say, after suffering a fatal injury during his transportation in a police wagon.
It showed that the citizens of Baltimore have been let down. We've been let down, when it comes down to economic development, when it comes down to criminal justice, the system that's supposed to work for us, it does not work for us, it works against us. And so we are frustrated here today, letting our voice be heard that we want justice and peace, and this is not the justice in which we thought would come about.
Gray's death sparked mass demonstrations that only tapered off after the officers were charged over his death. All attorneys and Nero himself are bound by a gag order and can't comment on the case. The Baltimore Police Department did release a statement saying Officer Nero will remain on paid leave and their internal investigation into his conduct is ongoing. Prosecutors had charged Nero with 4 misdemeanors: assault and misconduct in office because they alleged Nero took part in an unlawful arrest of Freddie Gray and touched him without his consent. Nero was also charged with reckless endangerment and another misconduct charge for not seatbelting in Gray during a wagon stop where he was present. Attorney J. Wendell Gordon observed the trial.
Expected that to be the verdict based upon how the court was breaking it down as to the evidence that he credited and discredited. There was no other verdict really available. The state's attorney's office just didn't have the evidence to bring a conviction against Officer Nero, especially when they offered immunity to Mr. Miller.
Judge Barry Williams cited the testimony of fellow co-defendant Officer Garrett Miller, who prosecutors compelled to testify with a promise of immunity. During his testimony, Miller took full responsibility for making Gray's arrest and said at the time Nero was not physically present. Again, J. Wendell Gordon.
In this particular case, if the state had won in their risk, then no one would question it at all. But
shouldn't they know what he was? Shouldn't they know?
Huh?
Shouldn't they know what?
Yeah, it was very risky, and perhaps some would indicate or some would suggest that it was an unreasonable risk. However, they took it because in trials you have to take risks. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. In this particular case, they lost.
But what would the benefit be? Because he has immunity, so he can...
I know. Well, I think that someone in that camp should have been able to tell them that, he has no interest in being as forthcoming as one might imagine simply because he raises his right hand and takes the oath. Many police officers raise their right hand and take an oath to tell the truth, and they fail to do that. At this point, he could say whatever he needed to say, not only to exonerate himself, but to exonerate his comrade, Officer Nero. So everything that he said in that trial cannot be used against him.
Stay tuned to The Real News for further analysis on the verdict with veteran attorney Aid White Pettit.